Now that the foundation is complete, we move on to the next step, which is the subfloor and the decking. So the first step in this process is a termite shield, which really just consists of a metal sheet. Now this metal sheet has to lay over the top of the foundation. And in order to do that, we need to drill holes in it so that they will go over all the bolts. If you recall, these are the bolts that we set in place into the block when the foundation was being poured, or when the blocks were being filled, actually. The termite shield is a required code that we have to meet. Its purpose is to protect the house from termites crawling up the blocks, get to the wood that sits, the wooden sill that sits on top of the termite shield.
And then I'll drill a hole right there. And I'll look for the next bolt.
And with the termite shield all laid out, now we have to caulk all around each one of the bolts and in the corners where the two metal shields overlap. On top of the termite shield, we will put a wooden sill, which consists of two 2x8s. Just like the termite shield, these also have to be, holes have to be drilled in them. And Dwayne's about to lay in the very first sill plate. You're probably asking yourself, who is that beardless man? Yep, it's Dwayne. So in order for the sill to fit down on top of the bolts, you have to straighten them out. That's all I'm doing here. Here, my dad and I are working together to put the seal plates on. Both of them will go over the bolts and fit nice and snug. This took a couple days to do the seal plates. After the seal plates, these bolts have to have a washer and a nut screwed down onto them. My dad worked endlessly getting all those complete.
So here we're building the beam that goes down the middle. It's at an 11 foot on center. The piers there in between the two stem walls are 8 foot 6 inches apart. I'm using 12 foot 2x12s from one end to the other, and then the overlap will occur from one stem wall. There's actually made up of three. So what you're seeing here is the middle piece, and then it gets that middle piece gets sandwiched between two pieces on either side that will be cut at 8 foot 6, ending right there on both sides of the middle beam. And then of course there's one that goes from the middle pier to the side pier and then to the end, making a total of 3 2x12s. What is that? Over 5 inches of that. From there, the joist get hung on. Here, Keelan's nailing the two sill plates together. And we're required for here to have 2 seal plates. That's later it makes sense when the joist hangers go on the side, so you got a lot more on one end, on the seal end, for the joist strap to go on. And on the beam there'll be the regular joist hangers for 2x8 or 2x10 or 2x12. You see in the distance there we're using clamps, bar clamps. Bar clamps do really good for keeping things flat and together. You can see that one bar clamp underneath it keeps it tight. Keelan's nailing the joist hangers. It was all previously marked on 16-inch center. It's really a hell of a structure. 2x12s on 16-inch center. That's what's required here in the hurricane-prone zone. Tina's nailing some joist hangers on there as well. Actually, we're using 2.5-inch number 9 screws on the joist hangers and on the under end joist strap. We do that for the purpose of, if it's wrong, it's much easier to make adjustments, which in some cases we had to lift the joist hanger up just a little bit. Had that been nailed, that would have been a nightmare. And there's what the joist hangers look like.
Level! Woohoo! It's level! We got rained out. We got quite a few boards in. But we got rained out.
Pop the string. Yeah, that's way better fit.
Yeah?
Good, good, good. Woo! Okay, here using the Simpson strong ties. This is another one of their. This is the joist hanger that's on the end. You can see why we have a double sill plate there. It gives more room for screwing that anchor brace down, and then of course on the other end is your typical joist hanger. And of course, by the way, I'm sure you already know this, but every hole in a Simpson strong tie has got to have a screw or a nail. Since we got a triple beam there, that's why we use a 2.5 inch screw. Here's another bracket from Simpson strong tie. That's actually, I think it's called an HB3. That's used to hold the rim seal on all the way around on 4-foot center. Big time overkill, but that's what's required for hurricane prone. Quite the right drill for what I needed to do, which is to drill down through both the mud seals and into the concrete 6 inches. I've got to get a better drill, but you use the tools you have. Here we're working on blocking, staggered blocking, mid-span. Especially with large lumber like 2x12s. This keeps the bottom of the board from flexing. Also helps keep things on center. We only went 4 block high. I'm glad we didn't be 5, otherwise I'd be standing on a block 2. So you can see how it lays out. Again, using a bar clamp, quite good for either spreading things out or holding things together.
So today we are working on what's called the rim board. Goes down through here. It's a rim board. The rim board gets screwed in. This one's going in here along the side of the house. And then Dwayne's down here measuring for the next one that goes in. We'll go all the way down through here.
Just like that over both corners.
To check for square, you go from one corner to the opposite corner on the other end. It doesn't matter whether it's a square or a rectangle. When you make a measurement, you get a tight, close measurement, and you know exactly what the number is. Once you got that number, you go to the opposite side, opposite corner to opposite corner. If it is square, the measurements will be exactly the same.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much for something to be out of line for it to show a 2 or 3 inch difference. In this case, we were 1/2 inch, which is not a big deal, especially once we put the deck on the plywood. Once we checked for square there, it was completely and totally square, so we were good. Now that we're all square, we're ready to put on the plywood, the deck. In this case, it's 3/4 inch plywood, tongue and groove, required to nail and screw.
Ready?
We get the first row down one side is the most critical. Everything else comes from that. I actually would use screws on the side that wasn't being screwed to keep the plywood in line. Tina's putting down the glue, Bob's coming through and putting nails. In this case, we're required to have 6 inches in the field, 4 inches on the edge, and using 8D ring shanked nails, galvanized, because the wood underneath the plywood is pressure treated, so you have to make sure that whatever goes in the pressure treated is galvanized. Here Keeling came in as a really good help to help bounce these jokers together. Having the joist level was quite critical. Here you can see the understructure. Just an amazing amount of wood to hold it all together. with the joist hangers, the middle piers. That's what it looks like underneath the house. You see the termite shield. And no nails going through. We actually marked the plywood so we wouldn't miss nail. And so it's quite easy. It's a little extra step, but it keeps you shooting nails through the plywood and just going into nothing. Again, using the bar clamp, bouncing the plywood so the tongue and groove is tight. Always want to keep that tight. You get your plywood out of alignment and it's going to affect the entire job. So it's very, very important that the stuff stay tight and exactly on line. The blocking kept all the joists on center. So every sheet fell exactly where it needed to fall on the ends, so we didn't have to do any extra cutting. It's important that everything stay exactly where it was supposed to stay. Okay, the decking is done. We're starting the layout. This is one of the most critical aspects of the job. The whole house is based on it. I made sure that my the wall studs lined up exactly with the floor joists, just to give it extra strength. This is a very critical aspect of the job. For me and the way my brain works, I do this solo with no other activity going on, because it doesn't take very much to get distracted and get off, and then everything else is affected, from your windows, your doors, where your trusses fall, everything. So this is a super critical. Have a really good plan for how your layout's going to be.
All in all, the subfloor took us about 3 weeks.